of America
Last 10 years.
to revolutionize the concept of removing the status quo, undoing the establishment, and just a new wave of outreach that Chabad never saw. And the way that Rebbe defines it is that, he spoke about this a lot of times about the Frierdiker of Yud Shvat, that none of the Rabbeim lowered themselves down to teach Aleph Beis to a child. A Rebbe is someone who teaches Chassidus, is a Raya Mehemna, a shepherd of the Jewish people who gives Emunah. But to teach Aleph Beis, anybody can do it. And as Rebbe once said, the Lubavitcher Rebbe has to be the one to teach Aleph Beis. But here the Frierdiker Rebbe broke that mold because, in the Rebbe's words, the fact that it came to him that meant that he has to be the one to do it. So from the establishment of Hebrew schools and doing release programs for Friar children on Wednesday hour, all the way up to Chassidus, the deepest secrets of Chassidus, were all the domain of the Frierdiker Rebbe. So what you have is 10 years where the Frierdiker Rebbe is literally broken, physically, emotionally, and every other way. He later had a stroke, he couldn't even speak after 1945. And there is one yeshiva in America when the Frierdiker Rebbe came. Torah Vadas, that's it. Day schools, unheard of. There was one school in Manhattan, that's it. One school in Brooklyn. They weren't reaching out to the Jewish community. They were servicing the little people that lived on the corner, Kraudites, Yeshiva, whatever. The Frierdiker Rebbe made a movement, and what he saw that American Jewry is going to end because we have thousands of communities. We built shuls, conservative temples, conservative synagogues, reform temples, cemetery societies, but no schools. They have what's called cheder, and cheder is Sunday school. Some of them even had it maybe an hour a day after school. But there was no infrastructure of Jewish education. So how are you going to get the next generation? That's the end. It can't exist. So the Frierdiker Rebbe started this day school movement. Rabbi Edelman, all the way up the East Coast. Worcester, Massachusetts, Springfield, Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, New Haven, Connecticut, New York, Chicago, all the way down. City after city after city, sending out shluchim. Pittsburgh, Motlolta, and a bacher of 20 years old. The Frierdiker Rebbe calls him in, Yutas Kislev, 1942. He's himself a Mekurv to Chabad. He was sent for 2 weeks by Jacobson to Poland, and he came flying back because World War II broke out. The next thing, the Frierdiker Rebbe is appointing him as a shliach to go open a yeshiva in Pittsburgh. No staff, no building, no teachers, no money. Go, knock on doors, and take children and start learning with them. Today we know what the yeshiva schools in Pittsburgh is. It's already 3 generations of hundreds and hundreds of families with Balei Tshuva and shluchim living all over the world. And this repeated itself again and again and again and again in all communities. This was unheard of. Not to go through the American establishment, the ad hoc, the type of, breitkeit. And what kind of money did he have? He barely had money to live. And they were operating on a shoestring. And literally turned America on its head. That's what he did the next 10 years. And he planted the seeds, what was to become the revolution of shlichus that the Rebbe would take over. They started to send out the Merker shlichus, the Bachrim in the summer to go visit isolated communities, literally with suitcases to sell talks and tales for a nickel apiece, to connect with the Jewish community, to breathe life into them. That they should see what a yeshiva bacher looks like, what somebody who has a beard and payas and davens 3 times a day and puts on film. There weren't any miftzayim even. There was no campaign. They certainly weren't fundraising. They were literally boots on the ground. Look at a Jew. Like the Rebbe says the story with the Bostonian, Yulia Krinsky, that his payas fell down. A lady was looking from the window, and it reminded her of her grandfather in the shtetl. That there's somebody walking around in the middle of Boston, that went to the Latin school, and now has a beard and payas. That was turning America upside down. So that was the next 10 years of Mesiras Nefesh until 1950. And in 1950. All of a sudden, at age 70, the Frierdiker Rebbe passes away.
I heard a fascinating thing that after he had the stroke in 45, and after that all the memoirs were written, that he couldn't say the memoir. Only maybe 1 or 2 people could understand him. Correct. And that he wrote Basi L'Gani for his grandmother, who passed away that same day, Yud Shvat. And he didn't write he didn't write one mimer. He wrote 4 mimer, right? Yud Shvat, Beis Nissen. There's 4 mimarim he wrote.
So we'll get to that also.
And then and altogether 20 prakim.
Correct.
And that's where the Rebbe went through. Anyways, but it was amazing that he wrote in that whole physically broken state. He wrote 4 mimarim.
So I'll enlighten you. I don't want to say correct you, but I'll enlighten you.
Good.
So, yeah, he stops to speak in front of people can't, unless you're very close, you can't understand him. So whenever somebody went into Yechidus, Rabbi Simpson or one of the elder Chassidim had to go with you to literally tell you what the Frierdiker was saying, because he spoke like somebody that, very, very speech impaired. Writing, he continued. But after a while, he stopped to write Maimorim also. In Tafshin Ches, in 48, he stopped to write Maimorim also. It was just too emotionally taxing. So the Rebbe came up with an idea, and he asked the Frierdiker Rebbe permission. Can I print for each Yom Tov a Maimer from a previous year that you wrote that has never yet been printed? And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, brilliant. Now, some of the Maimarim were typed, in what they would call kupir, in other words, a stencil printed. Nothing was published yet. The publishing of Chabad only opened in 1942, and they didn't start with printing the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimarim. So where are you going to get the Maimarim from? The Rebbe didn't want to burden the Frierdiker Rebbe either. So the Rebbe starts to collect from the older Chassidim that had transcribed Maimarim from the Frierdiker Rebbe because they wanted to have a copy for themselves. One example is the Basi L'Gani. So basically, for every Yom Tov from Tafshin Ches, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Yutas Kislev, Purim, Pesach, the Rebbe prepares a kuntris of a Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe with his own notations and Maramikaimus, publishes it for that day, with a little introduction of his own, inspiring a few words about whatever that Yom Kippur, whatever that holiday is, which in and of itself is a very Rebbish thing when you think of it. And it wasn't the Rashak didn't do that; the Rebbe did that. So here you have something that's really publishing Chassidus was a Rebbe's thing. Chassidim didn't do that, and it's certainly not. And here the Rebbe was doing that. It got to the point where basically the Rebbe was really doing everything. The Frierdiker Rebbe trusted him. He trusted him with which mimer to choose. He trusted him with how to break up the mimer into prakim. And he trusted him with which dibra maschil, the introductory line, to use for the mimer. Because as we know, a mimer is based on a pasuk. You want to make a stop for a song? We can continue this? Anybody? You just tell me. This is very informal. Okay.
Continue. We're good.
So, the pasuk upon which the mimer is based is very integral, because that's basically the message of the mimer, the spirituality of the mimer. Anyway, bottom line, the Rebbe borrows a manuscript binder from a fellow living in Crown Heights by the name of Eliezer Shklar. Eliezer Shklar wrote over from the Frierdiker Rebbe's Ksav Yad Maimorim in 1923 and 24 and 25 in Russia. And the Rebbe says, he gets a hold of it, and they say, wow, this is unbelievable. We're going to start printing some Maimorim for Yom Tov from here. One of the Maimorim was from Shabbos Parshas Bishalach, today. And the next one, Mishpatim, etc. So the Rebbe says to himself, we have 4 days coming up, Yom Tovim. Yud Shvat, Yud Gimel Shvat, Purim and Beis Nissen. He'll take this mimer, break it up for those 4, and he'll give it into the Frierdiker Rebbe and ask him permission to print it. So believe it or not, the whole Basi L'Gani is the Rebbe's initiation. The Rebbe chooses the mimer. I saw this bichul, Eliezer Shklar showed it to me. The Rebbe's pencil notations are in the book. The Rebbe borrowed it from him, wrote the notations for the typesetter, and then gave it back to him. So in the 1989, he showed it to me.
Where are these books now?
I don't know, his kids or grandkids might have it. So the 20 prakim of Basi L'Gani, which is very integral and very meaningful, comes from the Rebbe himself. The first thing I looked at in that bichol was what's the beginning?
But it's a Frierdiker Rebbe's.
Frierdiker's Maimer.
Maimer,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Correct.
But-
Said and written in Pei Gimel.
I got you.
It turns out that the beginning of the Maimer is Vayehi Ba'etzem Hayom Hazeh, a pasuk from the Parsha. The Rebbe cuts out that top and starts it from the Hine. In order to understand the meaning of this pasuk, we have to be quote from CHASSIDIM from Basi L'Gani Achesi Kala. And the Rebbe says, since I'm not printing this for Parshas B'Shalach, so he's going to take out the first, and he'll start the Maimer Ksiv Basi L'Gani Achesi Kala. And that's how the whole Maimer Basi L'Gani comes to be. Little did we know that that's going to be the last Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and it's going to be the Frierdiker Rebbe's last will and testament, and it's going to be the continuation of all the Rebbe's Maimarim for 40 years that are built on that Maimer.
Magnum opus. But so which parsha was it supposed to be?
I think it was Boyer B'Shalach, but he bet to me, look in the Parsha. He bet to me,
Wow. Okay.
Unbelievable. The last time the Rebbe saw the Frierdiker Rebbe was on that Friday. He published the first of the 4 Kuntresim
Right.
in honor of Yud Shvat, which is Rebbetzin Rivka's yard site, the Frierdiker Rebbe's grandmother, the Rebbe Marash's Rebbetzin. The Rebbe figured it would be a nice day to get a mimer, to get, he wanted to get as many Maimarim out as he could, as a Chosid would do. So the Frierdiker Rebbe was like, great. So he brought the Rebbe on Friday afternoon, this mimer. The Rebbe describes what happened. He walked into the room, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was sitting in his chair by his desk, and he was wearing his big day Shabbos, and he was in between Hoidu and Pasach Elio. And I walked over to the table, and I gave him the mimer, and he nodded with his head in thanks. And then later the Rebbe quotes, and the Rebbe says that this mimer is a balabatish mimer. Normally when you hear the word balabatish mimer means that it's very down to earth. Balabatish means, yeah. So right away the Frierdiker Rebbe explained what he means. What does he mean, balabatish? That through learning this mimer, a person has the ability to become a balabas over their Yetzer Hara. This mimer gives you the tools to be in control over your Yetzer Hara, to be a balabas. So it's a balabatish mimer. So the Ruchnis is a balabatish mimer.
This is what the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe.
Yeah. The Rebbe writes it over when he prints the next Kuntras. So that's an answer to your question about the Basi L'Gani.